Hello and welcome to another edition of Today's Veteran. I'm your host, Kate West. Today, we'll recap some of the Veterans Day events that happened in Polk County and touch on some recent news that affects veterans in the community. Later, we'll hear from Stephen Anthony and John Weems Jr. in our War Story segment. Now prepare to copy. Your sit rep is to follow. As part of the original GI Bill, the Department of Veterans Affairs established a home loan program in 1944 for returning World War II veterans. On 26 October, the VA announced the guarantee of the 20 millionth loan for a home in Virginia. The program seeks to make home ownership more affordable for those eligible by making financing available at a lower cost. The VA's Undersecretary for Benefits, Allison Hickey, said that the 20 millionth VA home loan is a major milestone and is a testament to the VA's commitment to support and enhance the lives of veterans, service members, their families, and survivors. Given the current state of the economy and the extremely low interest rates, the program has seen significant growth in the past 5 years. There are currently 1.7 million VA guaranteed home loans in existence. To find out more about the VA home loan program or to see if you or someone you know may be eligible, visit the program's webpage at benefits.va.gov/homeloans. Determining your eligibility for the home loan program or any other benefits through the VA may seem like an intimidating task. It doesn't have to be, though. The easiest way to determine eligibility is to submit an application, which can now be done online at www.ebenefits.va.gov. You can also apply by visiting your nearest VA medical facility or by calling 1-877-222-VETS. That's 1-877-222-8387 during normal business hours. Did you know that women are the fastest growing demographic within the veteran population? The current projected percentage of total veterans in the U.S. who are women is more than 8%, according to the VA. That figure is up to almost 12% of veterans from Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. Find out more about what the VA is doing to meet the healthcare needs of women veterans and about the newly reorganized Women's Health Services Program office online at womenshealth.va.gov. This website provides information on healthcare services that are available to women veterans, including both primary and specialty care. Every year on November 11th, America celebrates military veterans whose service and sacrifice allows us to enjoy the freedom we know today. 22 million living Americans today have distinguished themselves by their service in uniform to the armed services of the United States of America, including 1.6 million in Florida and over 55,000 right here in Polk County. Veterans Day fell on a Sunday this year, which meant that much of the country saw 3 days of memorials and tributes. This year's festivities were also noteworthy as the first since American troops left Iraq in December 2011. The Polk County Office of Veteran Services celebrated the weekend on 10 November in Lakeland with a memorial ceremony and parade. Here are some highlights from the event.
Eternal Father, from its inception, you have blessed and you have guided and protected the United States of America. Through your able assistance and your profound wisdom, our founding fathers realized the need for our citizens to bear arms to honor, protect, and defend the freedoms endowed by you, our Creator, and clearly articulated by our forefathers and founders in the Constitution of the United States. We thank you today for the multiplied thousands of men and women who have served in our armed forces through their commitment, their dedication, their promise, and their loyalty to protect our citizenry.
It has been a constant reminder to all of us that freedom is not free. It has to be paid for with a price, and that price comes in the form of the investment of blood, sweat, and tears, and sometimes lives. And that sacrifices has to be borne by our veterans and those men and women that serve in uniform representing this country both here and abroad. But it also is a sacrifice that their families make, and the least that we can do is to tell them thank you. And I want to thank you for being here today to do that as we recognize our veterans for the sacrifice they've made for this great country.
On November the 2nd, about 90 volunteers from Home Depot gave up their time, their day off, to come here and do the work in this park. And what you see here is a result of that effort. So in recognizing their contribution and what they've done, the mayor has a special presentation to give to Home Depot, represented here by Brad Raysin.
I'd like to say thank you to the Veterans Organization and the City of Lakeland and Mayor Fields, Commissioner Salvage, for their support. It was kind of like just a dream several months ago. We met with them and said, what can we do? And they were graciously receptive to our commitment to do this park. They trusted that we would finish it. It got done, and it's been a pleasure serving the veterans. Thank you.
In every war, there are civilians who contribute to the national defense, unsung heroes whose work behind the scenes produce the equipment and material vital to the fighting forces. This year, the Polk County Veterans Council is proud to honor the work of one such organization. In addition to, you just saw Home Depot, but the food manufacturing company, commonly called the FMC, here in Lakeland, manufactured the landing vehicle track, or the LVT, during World War II. FMC manufactured insecticide spray pumps and other farm equipment before the war, and then transitioned to building LVTs for the war effort. The LVT played a major role in the amphibious assault victories in the Pacific campaign of that war. The company and Lakeland received national acclaim back in the 1940s for the production of these combat vehicles. There are some long-term residents, perhaps in this audience, I'm sure, who remember FMC, or who had relatives that worked for the company. Well, FMC exists today, operating under the name of JBT Corporation. The plant, located near the shore of Lake Parker, which, by the way, was constructed by the U.S. Navy, still houses employees of that company. Not for much longer, however, as plans are underway to build a new plant on the same site. So to this Veterans Day, we are recognizing the efforts of that company with its links, special links to Lakeland during World War II. And we are privileged to welcome Donn Sabato, JBT U.S. Sales and Service Manager, as our keynote speaker. Now, Donn joined JBT Food Tech's Citrus Division in 1979 after receiving his bachelor's degree in business administration from Penn State University. He later earned his MBA from Florida Southern College. Donn is the presiding president of the Florida Citrus Producers Allied Vendor Association. He and his wife live in Lakeland and are the proud parents of 2 daughters, 1 son, and 4 grandchildren.
Well, good morning, everyone. Mayor Fields, Colonel Salvage, Colonel Clark, distinguished veterans, fellow citizens, and JBT employees. First of all, happy Veterans Day. I hope I get through this today. I'm getting over a cold, and I also inherited the gene from my mother that she was a professional crier. So whenever there was a wedding or a funeral, they would bring her in, and I inherited that gene. And when Chloe was singing, there was a tear in my eye. I'm going to have to talk to Donn about following both Chloe and Homer. But as Don said, my name is Don Sabato. I'm the U.S. Sales and Service Manager for John Bean Technology. For the rest of my speech, please note that John Bean Technologies will be identified as JBT. And I am both honored and delighted to be here this morning representing JBT as we celebrate Veterans Day. Now, if I'm successful this morning in delivering my message, you will learn more about JBT and its history of innovation in Lakeland. You'll understand its key role in helping the Allies win World War II by playing a prominent role in the Battle of the Pacific. Much like the heritage of JBT's founding father, John Bean and his inventions to meet specific needs, the Lakeland story also begins out of a desire to meet local needs right here in Florida. I should clarify two things before I get started. Many of you know us as Food Machinery Corporation or simply FMC. FMC in Lakeland is now known as JBT Corporation. Prior to 1941, FMC was active in the Florida citrus industry and was located in Dunedin. The buildings erected in Lakeland during 1941 at 400 Fairway Avenue were built for a very different purpose. I can't tell you how many times I've met people socially in Lakeland who tell me that their grandfathers, their uncles, their fathers, their mothers, or some friend worked at FMC building the tank that floated. So how did the tank that floated originate? In the early 1920s and 30s, a Clearwater inventor named Donald Roebling had been charged by his father with building a vehicle that could traverse swamps and save lives after experiencing a series of devastating hurricanes. Donald Roebling set out to build an aluminum amphibious vehicle called the Alligator. He built it in order to enable searches and rescue operations in flooded and debris-filled areas. The Roebling family had a history of ingenuity and engineering prowess. Roebling's grandfather, Colonel John Roebling, a Civil War hero, had been the designer and builder of the Brooklyn Bridge. After meeting his father's requirements and building a successful prototype in 1936, a Life magazine article featuring Roebling's work, and the U.S. military took notice and visited Roebling in Clearwater. For several years, the military had been looking for an amphibious vehicle that could travel uninterrupted from sea to land. They met with Roebling and evaluated his unit. After a series of tests, with more than one unit sinking in Lake Parker, the Navy was impressed enough to order an initial 200 units. The Water Buffalo, as the landing vehicle was called, became the backbone of Food Machinery Corporation's war effort in Lakeland. In 1941, in order to speed up their delivery and expand production capacity, a new plant was built in Lakeland and financed by the U.S. government. Its first plant manager was Courtney Campbell. Yes, the same one who has the Clearwater Causeway named after him. This vehicle was redesigned and became the first amphibious vehicle built at the new Lakeland facility. Over 10,000 of these units were built during World War II in both Lakeland and San Jose, California. During World War II, the Alligator was known by several names, including the Water Buffalo, or LTV, landing vehicle truck. It could carry 18 fully equipped men, or 4,500 pounds of cargo. In the latter part of the 20th century, newer versions such as the M113 Armored Personnel Carrier and the Bradley Fighting Vehicle were also built by FMC and still are in service today. After World War II, the Lakeland plant retooled and converted back to providing solutions for the local Florida citrus industry, building, packing, and processing equipment. Over the years, we have supported the citrus juice processing and fresh produce industries with our juice extractors, aseptic systems, preservation waxes, and labeling machines. 4 out of 5 oranges in the world, I'll repeat, 4 out of 5 oranges in the world are processed into juice on JBT extractors. If you are going to Munn Park today to see the festivities there, please note JBT will have a booth, and you can see pictures of many of the people and things that I discussed here in this speech. Earlier, I said I needed to clarify 2 things. The first was to explain the relationship between Food Machinery Corporation, FMC, and JBT, and explain that FMC is now known as JBT. Hopefully, I accomplished this task. The second is far more personal. Last year in December, JBT celebrated 70 years in Lakeland. Col Don Salvage, who is also your city commissioner, was invited to our celebration as a local dignitary. Our HR manager and a long-term career military person was the keynote speaker at the celebration. I emceed the event because I'm the unofficial historian for our company. Col Salvage asked if JBT would participate in a Veterans Day salute to JBT. We accepted since JBT is proud of its role as a community leader. Our HR manager and I agreed that he would give this speech since he is a veteran and I'm not. Well, as you can see, he was not here today due to a family emergency up in the Northeast, something called Hurricane Sandy, so I'm taking his place. Well, I told Col Salvage that I was a little concerned about this and giving a speech at a Veterans Day celebration while not being a veteran myself. Donn reminded me that at last year's events, I spoke of my father's war effort. He was a World War II veteran and involved in the D-Day landing at Normandy. Unfortunately, my dad died when I was young, and I never got the chance to talk to him as an adult about his role in the war. As a child, I do remember my father as a happy-go-lucky sort, and he loved to regale us with his humor. The only stories of his war that I remember are the time he was coming back from a night of drinking in a French town and drove his bicycle over a cliff, and the other was my mother's anger that whenever he talked about his English girlfriend during the war. But since I knew I'd be up here today, I spent some time thinking about my dad and recount some of the memories I had of him while he was still alive. I remembered whenever we would go swimming in the summer, I noticed that he had bullet wound marks on both of his legs and one on his backside. Whenever I'd ask him about the wound marks, he always diverted attention to some other subject. I also remembered his carefree attitude about life and death, as if he had already been confronted with his choice, made it, and was blessed to live and see another day, a day in which he cherished as if he might not have another. Many of you veterans in the audience know what this must feel like. As a family member of a veteran, I can only tell you how much pride I have to this day about my father and his time in the military. To me, my father is a hero, and I thank the people who put this event on so I can let the world know that Carlo Joseph Sabato, U.S. Army Sergeant in World War II, was a hero and served his country well. Family members of veterans in the audience, if you are lucky enough to have your veteran here today, be proud of their sacrifice for their country. As President John F. Kennedy once said, "We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and success of liberty." Our veterans met this challenge. If you will, tell your veterans that you love today, not tomorrow, that they are your heroes too. Before I conclude my speech, would Brittany Wagner please stand? Brittany, her boyfriend is a gentleman by the name of Brian Trent. Brian is an engineer at JBT, and he is currently doing his third tour in Afghanistan. They are here representing him tonight. How about a nice round of applause for them? Brian's an outstanding young man. I hired him. Engineering stole him from me, but I hope he comes back safe, and tell him we need him back here too. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me this personal moment. Thank you for allowing me to talk about my dad and his war efforts. You are all heroes in my book. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the United States of America.
My name is Steve Anthony. I go by Tony. I enlisted in the Air Force in 1969 and spent the next 20 years of my life serving the country. Retired as a Master Sergeant in 1989. Some of my stations were obviously basic training in Lakeland, Texas. Moved on to Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi and was sent overseas to RAF Lakenheath in England. I spent 5 years, met and married a British woman. And from there, I went to Southeast Asia for the next 366 days. My home base was at Udon, Thailand. However, I was with the 1974th Com Group, and we controlled all of Southeast Asia. I did a lot of traveling around at different bases. From there, I went to Headquarters Military Airlift Command at Scott Air Force Base in Southern Illinois. Was there for the next couple of years and got lucky and caught another assignment back to England. I went to RAF Chicksands and was in security service for the next 4 years. From there, I went to Office of Special Investigations in Denver, Colorado at Lowry Air Force Base. Pulled some strings. I didn't like the organization very well. I pulled some strings and got out of the organization and moved to Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. And that was my first encounter with Strategic Air Command. Loved it up there. It was beautiful. Got promoted up through the ranks, became a first sergeant out there, and then promoted myself out of a job pretty much, and had to transfer again. Went back to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, and spent the last 2.5 years of my career there and retired. I have one humorous story to tell you. During my first tour in England, I was an administrator in base operations, and my boss, who was the airfield manager, we had a new troop coming in. He was a buck sergeant, but unknown name. So the paper that we got from Consolidated Base Personnel said, it's a buck sergeant UNK, which is an unknown. And 2 weeks later, he asked me if I had heard anything from Sergeant Unk. He thought that was his name. Here in the post, I am the incoming First Vice Commander. I've been a member of American Legion Post 8 off and on since 1989. I served on the TDY Room Committee, the Constitution and Bylaws Committee as well. Love it. Got a lot of good friends here. It's a good organization. When I retired, I was also a certified firefighter. And when I came to Winter Haven, I'd gone back to South Dakota to retire. And when I came to Winter Haven, my folks lived down here, and we just kind of settled down here. I went to work for the county and spent the next 16.5 years working for the county in planning division, and then became a shift supervisor for Polk County EMS.
My name is John Weems, Jr. I had the opportunity to be the commander of American Legion Post 8 in Winter Haven, Florida. I belong to the American Legion because the possibility for that is you had to have served your country during a time of armed conflict. In 1969, after I got out of college, was married and had a young child. Uncle Sam came knocking on my door. So I served from 1969 to 1971. I was an assistant operations and intelligence NCO with Field Artillery. I served with Headquarters Battery, 7th Corps Artillery in Murgen, Germany. At that time, as soon as I became an NCO, I had the opportunity. I became a member of the Nuclear Release Authentication System. I was the only NCO at 7th Corps Artillery who was qualified to work nuclear missions. At that time, I did several missions in other locations, but I was based out of Germany. I was fortunate enough to have my wife and child get to finish up my tour of duty there. Currently, we have 2,000 members of the American Legion who are veterans. We have 750 auxiliary, and we have 200 sons of the American Legion. The auxiliary to qualify, the ladies, if you're interested, is you must be been married to or a direct descendant of a veteran. The Sons of the American Legion, they must be a direct descendant of a veteran. I happen to be a member of the SAL because of my father. I'm a member of the Honor Guard, Patriot Guard Riders, and the 40 and 8.
We are always looking for more stories from the veterans right here in our community. If you or someone you know has a story to share on this show, contact me at the information on your screen. That's all we have for this edition of Today's Veteran. Be sure to tune in next month to catch our interviews from the inaugural Warriors for Freedom Golf Invitational.